What's up and welcome to my final summary review of the Alienware M18. Now I've done a full 4 hour, probably about a 4.5 hour live stream covering all of these topics in extreme detail. So if you want to see individual game benchmarks, synthetic benchmarks, unboxing, how to take the laptop apart, all of that, please check out the full live stream. That'll be linked in the description down below. Now I got to give a huge shout out and thank you to Best Buy for sponsoring this episode. They sent over this 1 terabyte Sandisk Extreme Portable SSD, and it is very small and very portable, utilizes USB-C for very fast transfer speeds, and you can even game on this thing. It's got a heat sink on it. And I want you to know that I can be completely honest with you about what I think about these products and that my reviews are not edited by Best Buy. Like, these are my honest thoughts about the Sandisk product. And I also want to mention that I have been a Best Buy fan way before they sponsored my videos for 20 plus years. Over 1,030 megabits per second read speed, 960 write speed as tested in Crystal Diskmark with the SSD that I have here. Another nice feature of the Sandisk Extreme Portable SSD is that there is drop protection. I have not drop tested this myself, but it does also feature IPS dust and water resistance, X-ray and shock resistance. So, I mean, this thing is going to be very good for traveling with you, keeping your data safe, generally speaking, more so than your typical SSD enclosures that aren't really designed for drop resistance. There are a ton of reviews on this Sandisk Extreme Portable SSD, and it's like extremely positive. That means the vast majority of users have had no issue with their SSDs, and I've had no issue with this one in my testing or speed. It is plenty fast for loading games, playing games. The thing can easily fit in your pocket and travel with you wherever you go. So if you have limited storage available on the inside of your laptop, this is a great way to expand your storage with no hassle or without having to upgrade your laptop to have an additional SSD slot. As long as it has a USB-C port, you're gonna be able to get great performance and speed. So if you're in the market for a versatile, portable, durable SSD, this one is a great one to consider. There are links in the description down below. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the review. Let's talk about all of the different things we found out. There are a lot of competitors to this laptop, and right now at $27.99, now that I've had a chance to benchmark it and really see what this thing can do, I mean, it's a good laptop, but it really needs some software tweaks really badly. And we're gonna get into all the details about that. It feels like I have a pre-production laptop in my hands. That's literally how this feels right now, because I have seen pre-production laptops from other companies that have better power limits, BIOS setups, and more up-to-date drivers than this. Now, the current drivers we have on this were from July. That is the most up-to-date driver we can download and install without it crashing. I have tried installing the AMD latest driver with Adrenaline. It causes the screen to go black. I have spent an hour and a half on support with Dell support, could not resolve the issue. I tried using DDU to uninstall it. I had to use an external monitor to be able to access the laptop and uninstall the new drivers to go revert back to the Dell drivers, like I said, that are from July 11th, which is a really long time ago. So literally the drivers that are on this laptop would not run Starfield. Okay, all right, so that was issue number 1. Drivers updates needs to be taken care of because they are not up to date at all, not even a little bit. Like they really need to be updated. Like, yeah, Starfield literally just crashes on load. But the other issue with the laptop is thermal throttling. These are the 2 main issues. Thermal throttling right now can be addressed by switching the laptop to quiet mode or balanced mode, or potentially by adding a laptop cooler, which we tested in today's live stream for about half the games. And basically, when you reach thermal throttling, what we're seeing is severe 1% low stuttering, like really badly. And this doesn't always happen when you thermal throttle, but with this laptop, you stutter really bad when it thermal throttles. So you'll notice it because you're going to be looking at a slideshow. All right. Now, to fix thermal throttling, you can increase the airflow, you can increase the max fan speeds, or you can lower the power limit on the laptop. And in this scenario, what Alienware needs to do is lower the power limit on the laptop to about 60 watts when under a dual load and the max fans are running and the GPU is also under a heavy load. That'll give us usually enough headroom in the vast majority of titles to never thermal throttle, I think. I think. Might have to go down to 50 watts, but 60 will probably do the trick, and you'll still get very good performance overall. Yeah, so we saw a horrible 1% low stuttering in Apex, well, lower than it should be in Apex Legends, Counter-Strike 2, God of War, Cyberpunk 2077, Hogwarts, Dead Space was the worst. Last of Us, Starfield we couldn't test. Baldur's Gate 3 was very good. We actually didn't run any problems, but we also ran it in quiet mode for that game. Witcher 3 also didn't thermal throttle either. It was GPU bound, so no problems there. So it's going to depend on the game, whether you're going to run into that thermal throttling. But the simple fact is it's going to be simple for Alienware to fix this. And I really hope they fix it soon. Okay. So that like they can fix the thermal throttling simply by power limiting the laptop a little bit more than they are right now. And if they do that, the performance on this laptop is really good. Like I couldn't even really fully grasp the performance because we would have to switch it to quiet mode, which really limits down the GPU. Like in Last of Us, we got like 70 FPS, but when we go to like overdrive mode, we can get to like 90 to 100 FPS for a short period of time before it thermal throttles and starts stuttering. So yeah, it's really interesting. All right, so let's start at the top. Now that we've talked about those things right out the gate, let's go through each of the points. Unboxing the laptop is very simple. We have a big power brick with this guy. Let's see if I can grab that. 330 watts. I guess we can just show it with the overlay. Big power brick, about as big as it gets. You can probably get a slim power adapter, 330 watt on your own in a third-party situation. Or I just wish Alienware would provide a slimmer one at this price point. Like, I don't see why they couldn't. Quality control on this laptop was good. No problems there. Everything seems to be working. Hinge is very rigid, very stiff. I love the quality of the hinge. Keyboard feels really good to type on. And this is not the mechanical one. This is the regular chiclet keyboard that's no upcharge to it. I'm pretty sure the mechanical one would feel even better, but it would also be a lot louder to type on. So it's up to you whether you want that trade-off or not. The touchpad, I can't tell if it's glass or plastic, but it works well. I would not be surprised if this is a plastic touchpad because it's not gliding as smoothly as a glass trackpad usually does, but it does feel, the overall build quality of this laptop does feel really good. It feels like you're holding a tank, and this thing weighs about 9 pounds. It's the heaviest laptop of 2023. You got a Tron light on the back, which looks really awesome. Great looks on the back. Tremendous ports, RGB light up Alienware logo. Let's talk about the ports real quick. USB-C 3.2 on the front right, big old fan exhaust over here on the right. On the rear, 2 more big fan exhausts. You got 2 more USB-Cs with DisplayPort out, USB 3.2 Type A, HDMI 2.1, mini DisplayPort 1.4, full-size SD card slot, and then the power adapter port over here. And then on the other side over here, 2 more USB-As, a network port, and a headset port. This thing has arguably the best port selection of any laptop currently on the market. And I would say it is the best port selection of any laptop on the market. And the full-size SD card reader went to super fast speeds, 275 megabit copy speed from my really fast pro grade SD card. So that's phenomenal. Like literally the best ports that money can buy in a laptop, which is what you'd expect because this is clearly a desktop replacement category laptop. That's going to be a lot harder to pack around with you. If you're looking for an Alienware to pack around with you, I'd recommend something like the Alienware M16, X16, X14 as options to look into for something more portable. Now, BIOS was very simple, not many options in the BIOS. You can enable CPU overclocking, but you can also just enable that in the Alienware Command Center, so not really any point of really going into the BIOS at all. The only setting maybe worth changing in the BIOS is turning the laptop on when the lid lifts up. I don't really like that because I don't want the laptop accidentally turning on when I'm not expecting it, and then I put it back in the bag when it's on. That can cause problems, like an overheating laptop. Okay. Webcam quality was very good. Windows Hello on this laptop is awesome. I would say the webcam quality is above average. Good color reproduction, decent detail. I wish it was higher resolution. That's the main That's the main thing I would criticize it for. Overall, like a 7.5 for webcam quality. Definitely still has a lot of room to grow, but above average for a gaming laptop. Display brightness was exactly at 300 nits, 300.5 nits with 840:1 contrast ratio. Contrast ratio could definitely be improved, and that's evidenced by like the grayishness right here on this screen here. This would normally be more black on a more contrasty laptop. So, but this is a 480 hertz refresh rate display, which is phenomenal for esports when the games can actually go to that high of FPS, like in Counter-Strike 2, where we saw 400 to 500 FPS. Now, the color gamut on this display is amazing, 100% DCI P3 color gamut. So you can use this display for video editing, Photoshop, all of that stuff. It's just not as high of a resolution. So that's the trade-off. Now, the lower resolution also makes it easier to pump out high frame rates. And we saw basically if the power limit in the CPU could be fixed and if the drivers were updated, we would see just superb, excellent performance almost across the board with a few exceptions. And we'll go through those here in a moment. Let's talk speakers. Speaker test was super weird because the music really didn't sound that good to me. There wasn't very good bass, there wasn't very good mids, there wasn't very good highs. I gave it like a 7.9 overall because it was quite loud, but that was about it. When I got to gaming with the laptop though, the speakers were consistently punchy and delivered good game audio, much better than average. And I feel like Alienware spent a good deal of time tweaking the speaker audio quality to be superb. So you can really feel immersed in your game, and you also have decent left-right audio separation. In Warzone 2, I could easily tell where the chests were and what buildings were around me, and basically pick up on where footstep locations are, which is rare. Most laptops, you can't do spatial audio with just the onboard speakers. And for single player story games, I think this would be very good for single player storytelling. Just don't expect like high fidelity and really good bass, but you can expect kind of like immersively loud audio with decent quality, you know, like okay-ish quality. Okay. Fan noise testing was shockingly quiet, only 53 decibels at max fans and overdrive mode, dropping down to like 49 decibels in performance mode, 48 decibels in balanced mode, and 46 decibels in quiet mode. Quiet mode really wasn't that quiet. You could still clearly hear the audio from the fans, which is not usually how quiet mode is tuned. Usually quiet mode is tuned to be like really, truly quiet. But maybe the power limit on the GPU, CPU needs to be higher to play games well or something. I don't know. I would expect quiet mode to actually be quieter, and I would expect the quiet mode power limits to be more like the balanced mode, typically. Time Spy, we got almost exactly on 17,000, but in the previous test I did, we got 19,000. We got 19,000 in Time Spy GPU, which is an above average score compared to RTX 4080 laptop GPUs. That said, I did get 19,700 in a previous Time Spy test. This one oddly tested a little bit low for some reason. I don't know why. That said, in the middle of the test, I did see the GPU wattage drop from 175 or 180-ish range down to 150 for about 10-15 seconds. And I think that's probably why we had a lower score. BIOS, I don't know if there was some thermal throttling that occurred or something. I don't know what caused it to drop for a little bit, but it did. And I think that's what hurt the Time Spy score. I think if we reran it a bunch of times, we would get closer to that 19.7 thousand score more often, or maybe even 20K, especially if you could overclock this. But as far as I know, there's no GPU overclocking available currently for the 7900M. But I think that maybe there'll be third-party tools that will enable you to do it. But I could not use MSI Afterburner to overclock currently. So Cinebench R23 is phenomenal. 34,500 out the box and stayed very consistently right around that score, right around 34,000. And even on battery, we were getting 27,000, which is just phenomenal for a battery only run in Cinebench R23. Absolutely loved the performance. So if you're looking to video edit on the go, I guess this is going to do it. But it's going to be one big laptop to take with you. Apex Legends, 300 FPS on high settings, 300 FPS on low settings. But when we went to low settings, we started CPU throttling, which caused poor 1% low stutters. So just keep them on high settings, or maybe Alienware will fix the power limit issue, and then you'll get even better 1% low performance. So 170 FPS for our 1% lows on high settings was very good. And 300 FPS, approximately at like 285 or something, for our average FPS was also very good. Warzone 2, we averaged 120 FPS, 60 FPS for our 1% low. Definitely, I was hoping to see better performance. Like I was hoping to see like 135, maybe 140 FPS, but we didn't see it. And don't know why. Driver updates maybe would help. I don't know. But we have seen better FPS with the Ryzen 9 7945HX with the Zephyrus Duo 16. So oddly lower performance here. Warzone has gone through a lot of updates, so that could also be related. Counter-Strike 2, high settings, we were seeing 200 to 400 FPS. Typically on low settings, we were seeing 400 to 600 FPS quite regularly, really taking advantage of the 480 hertz refresh rate display. And my goodness, it was so smooth to aim with. Highly recommended experience if you're a Counter-Strike 2 player, or maybe Valorant player, maybe League of Legends. Really, really awesome display for those kinds of games, because you can really hit those high frame rates if you set the settings correctly. God of War, very interesting performance. We had our first, that's when we really discovered, right, that we were really thermal throttling, and that was really causing bad 1% low performance. So that was when I started playing with the quiet mode. And as soon as we switched to quiet mode and the original graphics settings, we were doing like 130 to 140 FPS with very high 1% low performance. It was super buttery smooth, and it still looks great on original settings. So anyway, definitely, if Alienware can just fix the power limit on the CPU so that it doesn't cause thermal throttling, so then we don't have 1% low stutters, the performance of this laptop is going to be awesome. Like it's such a minor thing to change. Like literally it could be like probably done in like an hour of a software engineer's time and then deployed. Obviously you want to test it before deploying it, but like it would not take long to change that. And I'm going to try to see if I can figure out a way to change it myself without Alienware doing it. So be ready for maybe an optimization video in the future for this laptop, because this laptop really needs some optimization. And especially if I can get the new updated drivers, that would also be another reason to retest this laptop. Yeah. Okay. Cyberpunk 2077. 1% low stutters, again, because of CPU thermal throttling was happening, definitely causing issues. So it's really hard to test the real performance that we would expect, but definitely possible to get like 120 plus FPS when you turn ray tracing off. But Cyberpunk is one of the games where you probably would want to turn ray tracing on, because it does make a visual improvement in the game, in my opinion, where it doesn't always in every game. Like The Witcher 3, I turn ray tracing off on purpose. So Cyberpunk, I would say we were getting about 60 FPS with ray tracing on Ultra. Definitely playable, but turning off ray tracing really, I think, makes the experience much better, pushing us more towards the 120 FPS range or greater. So my recommendation, at least for now, definitely would be to turn off ray tracing. Hopefully FSR 3 can come through and really help this GPU out in these newer modern titles that are very demanding and that have ray tracing. Currently FSR 3, which is the competitor to FrameGen from AMD, is only available in a handful of titles, like 2 titles, I think. But more titles are slated for release, including Starfield and a lot of the newer titles. So I'm expecting FSR 3 support in the future, just not right now. And that will make a night and day difference if it's implemented well. But I have seen some mixed reports so far about FSR 3. I have not tested it yet. I want to do a live stream about it sometime in the future. But I don't own any of the games currently with FSR 3 enabled, so I got to buy those and download them and test them and all that stuff. So Dead Space. This was the game where we started using the laptop pad. Dead Space Such horrible 1% low performance, stuttering like crazy. It was a slideshow when it was thermal throttling nonstop. Switching it to quiet mode drops the power limit on the CPU down to like 40, 50 or whatever. And suddenly, bam, the gameplay is buttery smooth, really great high quality gameplay. Like really good 1% low performance, fantastic. It was like 50 or 60 for a 1% low performance. That's better than most Intel laptops that have much higher power limits and all that. So like this laptop, I feel like could literally be better than an RTX 4080 laptop, potentially with the right power limits in place where thermal throttling is not ruining the experience. Yeah, definitely was. So Dead Space, we added the laptop cooling pad, which was not able to get us out of the thermal throttling problems areas entirely on its own. It definitely helped with thermal throttling, but did not fix the issue until we dropped it down to quiet mode, which again, really severely caps our GPU and CPU down, like kneecaps them. So you're only getting like 70% of the performance of the laptop, and yet we're still getting good performance in Dead Space, even in the quiet mode, which makes me just really wonder, what are we going to get when hopefully Alienware fixes this laptop, or maybe I can fix it for them with optimization stuff, and then the FPS is going to probably go up by 30%, probably, and it was already a great experience in Dead Space, even in quiet mode. So, Hogwarts was another game where we saw thermal throttling happening sometimes, but it wasn't happening all the time. It wasn't a terrible experience with the default mode. So, but in general, probably going to see thermal throttling in certain areas. So probably quiet mode. And again, only about 70% of the performance of the laptop can be had right now in a game like Hogwarts as well. All right. Baldur's Gate 3 was phenomenal. It played great. Really good overall performance. 1% lows. We occasionally had stutters when we switched between characters, which is typical in Baldur's Gate 3, but it was like close to 200 FPS, often over 200 FPS on ultra settings. It's just fantastic overall experience in Baldur's Gate 3. And that was on native resolution without FSR, I believe. So fantastic. Witcher 3. It was like 60 to 70 FPS with ray tracing on ultra. Turning off ray tracing boosted our FPS up to 145. Definitely recommended using. I highly recommend in general when you're using a 1080p display, run it at native resolution, or at least this is full HD. It's 1200p display technically. Run it at native resolution. Don't use an upscaler. It adds a fudginess to the display. Don't add FSR. Don't add DLSS if you're running DLSS. If you have an NVIDIA GPU. Because either running it at native resolution or running it with anti-aliasing on like 4x or 2x at least is really going to help make this thing look visually crisp and clear, especially on the 18-inch display. Like if you set the wrong FSR settings or you run it without anti-aliasing, the resolution really stands out as being poor and kind of crappy. So if you set the anti-aliasing on, or run it at native resolution, especially native resolution with anti-aliasing on, is really the ideal situation with ultra settings. And I think this GPU should be able to do that in nearly every game as long as ray tracing is turned off. So that's the key. And then you'll have a great visual experience with this laptop, I think, in virtually every game once the thermal throttling issues are fixed from Alienware. And I really hope they get them fixed right away. Like I got this laptop early. To Alienware / Dell / AMD's credit, this laptop was not supposed to get to me until November 15th, but Alienware sent it out to me early. I did not get any special treatment. They didn't even know that I was getting this. I ordered this as a personal laptop. So yeah, this is the true experience though. Like I'm conveying the true authentic experience of this laptop, and it is totally crappy out of the gate. All right. The only playable fan mode is quiet mode. And in quiet mode, you're only getting, like I said, about 70% of the potential performance of the laptop. So you really just, this thing is kneecapped right now hard. It's like limping along. And I can't believe Dell shipped this thing to me with really outdated drivers so much that the latest and greatest games literally can't load. And there's no no option to update from AMD. On AMD's website, the official driver from AMD literally crashes the laptop and black screens it. So, I mean, putting those two things together makes it really hard to recommend the laptop like a 100% recommendation, especially at the full price, because $27.99 is a spicy price for this laptop, because you also usually got to pay sales tax on top of that. And you can get an RTX 4080 laptop with the i9-13900HX for like around $2,000, give or take a little bit. And that's going to give you a very comparable experience to this in many ways, not in all ways. This has lots of pros and cons relative to those laptops. Obviously, Alienware, very good build quality and very interesting designs with the Tron light on the back, Windows Hello. There's a lot of premium features on this laptop that many users are going to love. But right now, with the thermal throttling causing 1% low stutters, makes the laptop unrecommendable until they fix it. And I anticipate they will fix it. Like, I'm confident they'll fix it. I just don't know how long it's going to take until they fix it. And that's the question mark, where what if Dell and Alienware and AMD take a long time to fix the power limits, causing the thermal throttling crashes, and take a long time to fix the driver updates? It could be a month or two. And if you order this and it's a month or two out before they fix it, you might have you can't play your game that you want to play, like Starfield. Just literally can't play it right now on this laptop because the drivers are out of date. So, or, 1% low stuttering causing you to use quiet mode instead of high performance mode, which is just kneecapping your performance. So really mixed bag with the Alienware M18. I love the potential though. Like, give this laptop an updated BIOS and updated drivers, and let me test it again, because oh my goodness, this thing's got power. The AMD Radeon RX 7900M definitely is at least punching very strongly with the RTX 4080 in a lot of the games. And it certainly provides an ultra graphics level performance as long as ray tracing is not turned on in every title. Ray tracing is really the kicker for a lot of the performance issues, as well as thermal throttling. Obviously, thermal throttling is the biggest kicker. And then, of course, FSR 3 is the giant wild card, because if that thing comes in and really delivers, this thing becomes super recommendable once all the drivers and updates are put together for it. But if FSR comes in and kind of drops the ball, then I think a lot of people that bought this would kind of wish they had just gotten the RTX 4080 instead. So I think right now, probably stay away from this one until driver updates, BIOS updates, and a sale happens. Like I would probably consider taking a risk on this at $2,300, $2,400. That's the price range. If I was in the market, I'd be like, that would tempt me. I'm not saying to go for it, but if you're a Radeon AMD fan, like you got a Radeon desktop and you hate NVIDIA and Intel or whatever for some reason, maybe they screwed you over in the past, I don't know. That's when I would consider buying this laptop. All right, $2,300, $2,400, and driver update, BIOS update, and this thing's a monster. I mean, clearly we've seen the potential. Like, this thing is a monster laptop. Really high levels of performance, really high power limits. Theoretically can go up to 200 watts on the TDP, but we saw like 188 quite often in a few different titles. So it's the highest power limit laptop that I've tested this year, and so much potential just squandered right now. So kind of shame on Alienware, kind of shame on Dell, kind of shame on AMD in a sense. But at the same time, just please fix it, because I really want it to be awesome. And so does everyone else. All of you probably want it to be awesome too. So anyway, that's my review of the Alienware M18 R1 AMD edition. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Brandon out.